Hello everybody and welcome back to Reading with Grandma. We're going to continue our adventure on in Fairy Tale Land. Today we're going to read two classic stories. We're going to read Puss in Boots and Little Red Riding Hood. Yesterday we read Cinderella and Rapunzel. I hope everybody enjoyed them. Please leave me a comment to let me know what you thought of the books and the stories. So let's get started on our adventure with one crazy kitty cat, Puss in Boots. Like so many stories, this one begins with Once Upon a Time. This tale will reveal how a very unlikely person managed to marry the daughter of a king. The story begins with a cat called Puss, who belonged to an old farmer. After living a long and happy life, the old farmer passed away, leaving his farm to his sons. The youngest son was the most saddened by the loss of his father. It was for this reason that Puss decided to make this son his new master. Puss felt certain that he could help the young man. As it happened, Puss had a wonderful speaking voice. "I'm at your service," Puss said to the youngest son. "I'm afraid not," said the young man. "I cannot afford to take care of you." "Ah, my master," replied Puss, "but it is I who will take care of you. I only ask for two things, a pair of boots and a sack." The son hesitated, trying to figure out why a cat would want boots and a sack. Seeing no harm in it, he agreed. "I have an old pair of boots you may use," said the son, "and a sack." Puss bowed before the young farmer and promised to do his best to make life better for him. Puss set off into the forest. With his boots, Puss was able to hike deep into the woods where the fattest rabbits lived. Puss had a plan to trap a rabbit. It would make a perfect meal for his new master. It didn't take long for the skilled hunter like Puss to succeed in his mission. In no time at all, his sack was heavy with one of the biggest rabbits the forest had to offer. This rabbit was so magnificent, in fact, that it was fit for a king, which gave Puss an idea. Rather than taking his prize home to his master, Puss went straight to the king's palace. He informed a guard that he had a gift for the king. When the guard saw the beautiful rabbit, he bowed and allowed the mysterious visitor access to the king straight away. "This may be the finest rabbit I have ever laid eyes on," bellowed the king. "From whom do you bear this gift?" Puss bowed before the king and said, "It is a gift from my master. He is the Duke of Carabas." "I have not heard of this duke," said the king, "but such a magnificent gift will not be forgotten." Puss bowed once again and took leave of the king. He returned to the castle every day for a week, each time bringing another gift for the king. Puss had planted a very important seed in the mind of the king. He made the king think that the master was a great and wealthy duke. One day, Puss learned that the king's carriages would be passing by his master's farm. The clever Puss devised a plan to help his master. "Master, forgive me for what I am about to do," said Puss, and he shoved his master right into the river that flowed along the road. "Help! Help!" yelled Puss as the king passed by. "My master is drowning! The Duke of Carabas has been robbed!" The king ordered his men to stop at once. They ran to the riverbed and pulled the young farmer from the water. "My goodness," said the king to the young man, "I'm delighted to finally meet the Duke of Carabas. Your gifts these past weeks have been very generous. I hope that now I may return the favor." The king ordered his men to fetch a set of the king's finest clothes. In no time, the young farmer was dry and sitting next to the king and the king's daughter in their private carriage. Puss smiled to himself as his plan continued to work. "Now for the next step," said Puss. The king offered the Duke of Carabas a ride home. Puss ran ahead of the carriage. He spotted some farmhands working on land along the side of the road. Puss quickly explained to the workers that when the king passed by, they were to say that they were working on land to belong to the Duke of Carabas. Sure enough, no sooner had the carriage arrived than the king leaned out to ask the workers, "Tell me, for whom do you labor?" "We work for the Duke of Carabas. He owns all of this land," the farmer said. The king turned to his guest and said, You are a wealthy duke indeed. I would enjoy seeing your home." Puss quickly realized that something had to be done. His master's home was certainly not fit for a duke. So once again, Puss ran ahead again of the carriage. He soon came to a great castle in which dwelled a fearsome giant. This was no ordinary giant. It was a giant who possessed magical powers. Puss knew he faced a challenge, but being a clever cat that he was, he came up with a plan in no time. Puss sneaked into the giant's castle and found the giant cooking in a great feast in his kitchen. "What are you doing in my castle?" roared the giant. "It is said that you are a very powerful giant," said Puss. "That is true," said the giant. "I am more powerful than the king, for I can change myself into a fierce lion, a huge mountain, a deadly viper, or even a thundercloud." "Ah," said Puss, "but are you so powerful that you could turn yourself into something very tiny? Say a mouse?" "Ha!" laughed the giant. "How dare you question my power? I will show you." With that, the giant spun around until he was just a tiny mouse. Wasting no time, Puss leaped on the mouse, and like cats will do, he ate it right up. The giant's castle now belonged to Puss and his master, and not a moment too soon, for the king's carriage was arriving. Puss ran to meet the carriage. "Welcome to the Duke's humble castle," he said. "We have a feast waiting us." The king and his daughter were impressed by the wealthy Duke, and the Duke was charmed by the lovely princess. This was how they fell in love, and how an unlikely man married a princess. Puss in Boots lived the rest of his days in royal comfort. It's a one pretty smart cat, don't you think? It'd be nice to have kitty cats around like that. So now we're going to continue our adventure with Little Red Riding Hood. In a small town next to a large forest, there lived a little girl. She was called Little Red Riding Hood because of the cape her grandmother had made for her. One day her mother said, "Grandmother is sick. Please take her this basket of goodies. Be sure that you stay on the path." "All right, Mother," said Little Red Riding Hood, and she set off with her basket. Little Red Riding Hood soon forgot her mother's warning. She wandered off the path into the fragrant woods. There she met a wolf. She did not know anything about hungry wolves, and so she was not afraid. "Where are you going, little girl?" asked the wolf. "What do you have in that basket?" "I'm going to visit my grandmother who lives in the house with the red door," answered the girl. "She is sick, and I'm taking her a basket of treats." "Do you have fresh strawberries in your basket?" asked the wolf. "No," admitted Red Riding Hood. "Surely your grandmother would like some," said the wolf. "My grandmother loves strawberries." Little Red Riding Hood thought for a moment, then decided that the wolf was right. "I will run and pick some right now," she said. "You can leave your basket with me," suggested the hungry wolf. "I would be happy to watch it for you while you are gone." "No, thank you," said Red Riding Hood. "I will bring it with me so I can carry the strawberries." The disappointed wolf watched Little Red Riding Hood hurry away. He was very hungry, and a basket of goodies sounded delicious. Just as he was about to give up, Little Red Riding Hood came skipping back toward him. It was then that he came up with a plan. "I see you do not have any flowers for your grandmother," said the wolf. "I have picked this bouquet for my own grandmother. I suggest you pick one too. I know your grandmother would like it." "Grandmother does love flowers," said Little Red Riding Hood, and she began to search for the loveliest yellow and white blooms that she could find. So busy was she that she did not see the wolf run off in the direction of grandmother's little house. Little Red Riding Hood gathered her bouquet of flowers and skipped off to deliver her gifts. At the same time, the wolf snuck into grandmother's house. He frightened her so greatly that she ran out the front door. Then the wolf dressed in one of grandmother's nightgowns. He put on a sleeping bonnet and slipped into grandmother's comfortable bed to wait for Little Red Riding Hood. The wolf did not have to wait long. In a moment, he heard the front door open. "Hello, grandmother," called Little Red Riding Hood. "Hello, dear," said the wolf in a disguised voice. "Please come in. I am resting in bed." Red Riding Hood walked into grandmother's room. "I hope you are feeling better, Grandmother," she said. "I bought you a basket of goodies from Mother and me." "Thank you, my dear," said the wolf. "This is most kind. I am feeling better now. Your basket of goodies sure smells delicious. Please come closer and give me some news from the village." Little Red Riding Hood stepped closer to the bed. Her grandmother looked very strange. The girl was surprised to see her grandmother's eyes look much larger than she remembered. "Why, Grandmother," said Little Red Riding Hood, "what big eyes you have." The wolf blinked, trying to hide them from her. "All the better to see you with, my dear," he said. As the wolf shifted in his bed to hide his eyes, the bonnet slipped from his head. "Why, Grandmother," said Little Red Riding Hood, "what big ears you have." "All the better to hear you with, my dear," cried the wolf. As the wolf reached up to fix the bonnet on his head, he let the covers slip from his face. "Why, Grandmother," said Little Red Riding Hood, "what big teeth you have." "All the better to eat you with," cried the wolf. With that, Little Red Riding Hood let out a scream and ran from the room. The wolf leapt from the bed and chased after her. When the wolf reached out to grab her cape, she knocked over a chair and ran away. "Stop!" cried a loud voice suddenly. Little Red Riding Hood looked back to see a woodcutter holding his axe in the air. "Do you think you scare me?" asked the wolf. "I believe I should," said the woodcutter. He reached for the wolf and grabbed him by the tail. Then the woodcutter carried the wolf into the forest. As he did so, Grandmother came running up to Little Red Riding Hood. She had been hiding nearby in the garden shed. "Grandmother, I am so glad to see you're safe," said Red Riding Hood. "I was worried that the wolf had eaten you." Grandmother gave Little Red Riding Hood a great big hug as the woodcutter came out of the woods. "I do not think that wolf will trouble you again," he said, adjusting his cap. "Thank you very much," said Grandmother. "Won't you please join us for a snack?" The woodcutter, Little Red Riding Hood, and Grandmother enjoyed the basket of goodies as they sat and told stories for the rest of the day. Now, whenever Red Riding Hood visits her grandmother, she is careful to stay on the path. So that's all our stories for today. We'll continue tomorrow with 2 more stories. In our book, we will go with Jack and the Beanstalk and the Nightingale. I hope you all enjoyed these 2 stories. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of it, and if there's anything else you would like to hear. If it's for infants, tweens, teens, toddlers, babies, teenagers, adults, it doesn't matter. I've got a very big library and I can read you pretty much anything you want. So let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like, and if you haven't already, subscribe, and have a great adventurous day.